Burn your books. This does not mean that you should. What this means is that for the person who's under an obsession or an extreme longing to discover the truth, it cannot be found through prescriptive means. The trouble with books is that books keep a human being on the hook. It keeps him chasing. Those who write the books are trying to get across messages. They're trying to convince and convey. And in this convincing, there is an extreme beholdenness to providing how-tos and methodologies. This keeps one forever in ignorance. One could read 1,000 books. It will not get him to where he longs to go. Every human being is longing. Every human being craves something. And that something ultimately, in the ultimate sense, is the same for everyone. Whether one calls it peace or realization, freedom, enlightenment, bliss, wisdom, nirvana, whatever it may be, every human being is looking for that. Every human being is looking for something real, yet following something that is unreal. Books are unreal. Methods are unreal. And this is precisely why the human being chases for his or her entire life. And while there is nothing at all wrong with chasing, chases lead only to more chases. Burn your books does not mean that you should or that you should not. It is the realization for the one who is ready that truth cannot be found through methodologies, convincingness, or prescriptive means. Any questions that may arise regarding those who wish not to burn their books? There is no reason to ask such a question, for there is no compulsion to burn your books. It is not recommended. If you wish to keep your books, it is fine. Burn your books. It is a truth, not a recommendation.
Why this?
If you wish to be clever, go somewhere else. If you have a real question, ask it. If you wish to be spiritual and nonsensical, there are a million rooms in the entire world that will host you and that will welcome you. This is not one of them. Don't bring nonsense here. If you have a question, you can ask it. If you don't, go away.
Once you realize everything, does life become boring and meaningless from there? Does life become boring and meaningless once you have seen all?
The answer to that is no, but perhaps a more meaningful answer would be to say that it doesn't matter what the answer is. Until you arrive at that place, it is simply intellectual knowledge. Therefore, it has no relevance.
Is it possible to realize all of your gifts?
Everything is possible. The word all tends to stick in the throat, but whatever gifts a person has, everything is available to him or her.
Can there be any wisdom and understanding through the transmission of text or words that can be felt by a human being? For example, like there's been times where I've read, things that have truth in them before that I've certainly felt, but I know that the words that are containing those words are unreal itself. So the fact that I can understand the truth within the words, is that something that can be understood from someone?
Well, you can, if you hear something which resonates and you already know it, and then you read it in a book, yes, you can understand it, but that understanding tends to be intellectual. The reason why books are written is the same reason why books are read, and that is for the exchange of information. And the information does not get one to an ultimate place. Information is simply an accumulation.
What gives birth to the devotion for truth? In sense, how is true devotion separate from the self?
I don't know what gives birth to it. I don't know why
And-
a particular individual is drawn to it versus another.
So how can we can differentiate?
You cannot.
That-
You cannot.
Okay.
There's no how can. You can. It is. You're getting into intellectual concepts.
Okay.
The truth lies in the fact you're too ready to ask another question, and that sabotages your ability to listen. You are too interested to ask another question, and that sabotages your ability to listen. Devotion is the only thing which has the ability to get someone to the supreme in anything. And where that comes from, I don't know.
About books, do you mean basically conventional books that attempt to give you an answer? I have read some of your books and they only raise more questions. Do you? I know there's no best, but is that the only kind of books that can help you
So
go
I think
somewhere?
I think that whatever I say it is always wise to not look only at the words, but to look at the wider, more fundamental message. And that message isn't trying to be relayed to you to make it get across. It is simply there. And the person who's ready for it will connect with it, and the person who is not will not. Books is not just books. Books is information in any media, in any form. The point is that prescriptions and methodologies and the thing that one visits information for is a non-starter. The very reason that one reads a book, the very reason that one attempts to gain information, be it from a book or be it from someone, whatever it may be, it is done for the purpose, and it is done through the belief that the garnering of information will lead them somewhere of any high level, and it will not.
What is the best way to erase books from the memory or unnecessary information from the memory?
There's no best way to do anything. There's no need to erase anything. Either you have understood or you have not.
My simple question is, this entire education system feels like I'm just learning vocabularies instead of various languages.
What education system are you talking about?
The regular one that I need to go to the university, the schools, and everything else.
Okay.
So it just feels like learning a lot of words, but those words really don't, really don't have real life instrumental value to it. Do you think, in a similar facet, is because all I'm doing is I'm remembering words, I'm understanding words, and I don't think it's quite substantially instrumental.
Well, schools and universities have nothing to do with education. I'm surprised they still exist.
Is there, I mean, I don't know if you could answer that or not, but do you think there's a supplementary process to it, sort of substantial learning to it?
Learning to what?
Learning to anything. Is there a supplementary process?
I don't know what you mean by it.
By it, I mean that the learning process. Is there other way to learn rather than formal education or reading books?
I think you have to discuss. You have to discover what it is that you wish to learn. Formal education does, a person can learn in the setting of formal education, but the things that they learn is the problem. So a human being is a learning machine, but it is what you are trying to learn.
All right.
It isn't about the act of learning. If you learn a bunch of nonsense, you learned. So from the standpoint of having learned, you did learn. You were successful. You learned. But what did you learn?
That's what I'm sorry to cut you right there, but that's what is my problem at the moment. Like, for example, there are thousands of universities that teach you political science, for example, and let's say learning a political thought about 16th to 14th century. What practical implication does it have, and if it does not, I mean, what good is it for? Is my question, but I don't know if I'm clear.
Well, I've already stated that it's good for nothing. I've already stated in the first response that schools and universities have no place.
Kind of curious to know about the responsibility whenever you said something, what kind of responsibility you take? Like when you say that the university and schools are just like useless, so it's kind of you are taking responsibility for creating a kind of waves around the young generation, or you are just saying on this platform?
I'm not taking any responsibility for anything. I'm simply stating the truth. Now, if that is something that you don't agree with, it is perfectly fine. There is no reason for you to be here. I take no responsibility of anything. I have no interest in waving flags. I have no interest in having discussions. I have no interest in having debates. I have no interest in changing anyone. I have no interest in changing the public opinion. I don't care for the matter. If it resonates with you, you may stay, and if it doesn't, you don't have to. But nothing that I say is anything that I would like you to believe.
The question is why and how will this end basically? I get it and I can explain to other people and other people say, yeah. Basically, you get it like no one does.
What you call getting is not getting. What you call getting is simply intellectual knowledge. You only understand it intellectually. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that is the answer to your question.
Can you trust what you don't understand?
I think you know the answer to your own question.
Hi.
Hello?
Is God a prescription?
The word is not, but it depends how you approach it. If you approach it such that if I do this austerity and if I do this method, then that will help me find God, then that is a prescription.
Do you think the masses and the belief in God, most people's belief in God, serves as a prescription?
Human beings tend to believe in God out of fear. Devotion is extraordinarily rare.
I have a simple question. In today's world, there's a lot of social media, there are a lot of books, we consume a lot of data through the news. Is there a way that we can unlearn this stuff that we consume every day? It's causing a lot of clutter is what I feel. Is there a way to unlearn all these?
Well, if you wish to unlearn it, then if any human being wishes to get themselves away from it or wish to unlearn it, then they would not be exposing themselves to it on a regular basis.
Is stopping the exposure to all this is the only way? How do I
don't understand your question. If you are saying that you wish to unlearn something, and yet you keep going towards it, then something is off.
But my question is, today in the professional world, for a living, I have to consume some kind of data. Is there a way?
Well, there's no rule that you should not consume what you seek to consume, and whatever it is that benefits you, and whatever that is that informs you, whether it's in your life or in your profession, then there's no rule that you should or you should not. It is the understanding that to pursue method and technique in any form will not get one to the ultimate realm in their profession or in their life. And perhaps the more critical message to that is that there should be no compulsion to stay away from media or books or methods or techniques.
Is there a way to intentionally quiet your mind, like stop it from overthinking, or even like?
And this is precisely the point. What you're asking for is a methodology. What you're asking for is a technique, because that is all you know. That is the only thing that society has ever told you. You have never been introduced to the truth, which is to say that there is no method, there is no technique. Therefore, that is the only language that you have. That is the only construct that you have. Now, can the mind become quieted? Yes, it can. But in order for that even to begin, one must completely and utterly, non-effortfully, divorce themselves from the ideas of prescriptions. And that in itself could take 42 years.
Okay,
but that's what must be done.
So I heard your lecture, your wisdom at the start, and what I understood was that books lead to chases, chases lead to more chases, and chases don't lead to truth. So the end cannot justify the means, because the means employed determine the nature of the ends produced. So I'm wondering, how did you conclude that information is just an accumulation? Could you elaborate on the different forms of accumulation?
Well, no, I don't need to, because if you're asking me how I concluded it, that means that you're asking me to convince you of something or to teach you something. And that means that it did not resonate with you on impact. Not that it should, but the fact that it didn't requires a discussion. And discussion is more information and more accumulation.
Did we evolve? I mean, is the consciousness the product of evolution, or is it just an illusion that we're thinking of?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's all just intellectual jargon. It does not matter.
Is the desire to understand another, is it not another chase as well? How is it different from other chases?
It absolutely is. If you are looking to understand in order to achieve some sort of pleasure or accumulation, then absolutely it's a chase. But the things that are devotional are heartfelt. It is the things for which one has no choice. And if you have a choice for it, it's a chase.
Do you have discussions internally with yourself?
No, there is only the truth. Discussions arise from the mind.
Hi, Kapil. I'm 25. When I read your book for the first time some 2-3 years ago, it created an intense disquiet in my head, as if it's a compulsion, like I was fighting with those ideas. That sort of reaction, however, I still find myself keep going back to your book, especially Direct Truth. But that sort of reaction which I had for the first time makes me want to think that I probably don't have that DNA which I wish I had. And that makes me think that whatever now I look for, it will just be a chase. That's my question, yeah.
But that wasn't a question. That was a comment.
My question is now, whatever I desire for, as in the truth, it will just be a chase. Is that the truth in its own self?
Well, if you recognize that, and if you have a longing for the truth more than the chase, then naturally that is the way that you will find yourself going. One is not necessarily doomed. And if your realization that you have stated is true, then you definitely have a possibility.
Is there any correlation between truth and peace?
For some, truth brings turmoil. But in the end, if the truth for longing is real in a person's heart, It is the only thing that can bring peace.
At times, when I'm reading someone's work, I get the sense that it's bringing me closer to truth or further from the truth. Is this feeling of proximity to the truth, is this a trick of my mind?
So that has done. You have felt that. You have felt closer to the truth and further from the truth. So what? Look where you are. Wherever that may be, look where you are.
Does there come a point where one stops doing things or stops trying to do something about it? How does one know
Yes, that
when to stop?
that is extraordinarily rare. And in the same way that it is also extraordinarily rare for an individual to have the DNA to devote themselves to truth and not prescriptions. But when one naturally does not wish to do things, it is because they have seen the futility of all doings. So is that possible? Yes, it is.
How do you know when it's an insight from something beyond and when it's just another thought?
It's just another thought.
My days seem to fluctuate between extreme motivation to days where I am feeling this strong existential crisis. So I am able to see through.
You're going to ask me how to become motivated? Are you going to ask me how to get away with one? Okay, go ahead.
No, not at all, not at all. I'm able to see through this meaninglessness of life and how we just continue to numb that feeling through different experiences. So my question is that there's no how to out of it. I'm just asking, am I forever doomed to be in this cycle of motivation and crisis? Because they seem to go on and on and on.
On a practical level, every human being is doomed to that. They are not doomed from the standpoint of an ultimate possibility. It is not impossible, but practically, that is what ends up happening. So, if that is not okay with you on something beyond an intellectual level, then there is promise for you.
I would like to ask you a very good question that it's been bothering me a lot for a very long time. So I've been reading Zen, Stoic, and so many philosophies of life, and I get a thing called living in the moment, being in the now, and I really believe that's one of the key to be very happy and bliss about. So my question is, so what if I need something? Let's say if I need some bigger money tomorrow, so I have to do something about it.
You will never get in the now.
Yes,
you are the you did not listen to the talk. You will not get into the now. You are the classic victim of the prescription world. You can do every methodology and read those nonsensical books that you're talking about. And if you get into the now, good for you. There's no reason for you to seek anything else then. But please stop the nonsense.
Hi, Dr. Kapil.
Hello.
We all human beings are chasing something all the time. But if you find your truth, are you ready to die?
I cannot speak for people. It's a personal experience.
What does it mean by conquering the mind, and where do we start?
There is nowhere to start. Conquering the mind is freedom. There is nowhere to start. You did not listen to the talk. Not that you should have, but then you're asking a question which was discussed essentially in the talk. There are no prescriptions.
Thank you.
Sir,
Hello?
my question is that I often get the feeling of we are living with the luck, like how we born, how successful we born with privilege, or where we born in our countries, and how rich.
Yes, everyone
we are born.
is born into circumstances.
Yes.
Some people
I
view.
don't.
Hang on. Stop. Some people view luck as their god. Some people view luck
Yes, yes.
as something that is incidental. Your question was about
Yeah,
luck.
but yeah. But I also don't believe in law of karma. Like it's not our fault. Like how
Okay,
you
so
born.
what's your question?
I think it's we are living under a luck, right? So it's not our fault.
Okay, so this is you're a perfect example of this. So you ask a question, I provide a response. You don't like the response. You keep talking.
No.
You ask more questions,
No.
and even now,
It was my
even
question,
now
sir.
as I'm talking, you're still talking. I provided you the response, and this is not something that you did in any kind of derogatory or intentional way. The point that I'm making is that human beings ask questions, and they look only for the answer that they're looking for. You could ask 5 questions, and I would provide you 5 truths, and they would do nothing for you because you're not ready to hear them. You are simply more interested in asking the question.
How do I break my emotional ties to the past to be in the now?
Were you here for the talk?
Unfortunately, I was not. I apologize.
Okay, you don't have to apologize. There is no how to. There's no method or technique for anything worthwhile.
My question was, is there any greater truth than living your authenticity?
I mean, those are just words. That has no meaning. I mean, it could have meaning to you, and you know exactly what that means for you. But those are just words.
What is freedom, and does it really exist?
Yes, it exists. And giving you a simple definition based upon your question, you ask in a didactic way. Therefore, you're not ready for the truth. Because I could say A, B, C, D, E is freedom, and given the manner and the context through which you asked it, the A, B, C, D, E will do nothing for you.
What causes expectations?
It doesn't matter what causes expectations. It only matters where one goes with it. It only matters the effect of that upon a person, and if they recognize what that effect is without subscribing to any ideal or philosophy or concept or how-to or self-improvement or betterment.
My question is, writing books is in the spirit of community. Does the path of devotion require you to stand alone by definition?
Always.
My question is, I understand that books should come second, the one should come first. But when you don't want anything, so shouldn't we do anything? Like we should stand still. If we don't do anything, it's
so this is the classic conundrum by those whose minds are absolutely wrapped and conditioned by prescriptions, which is basically everyone. I never said that desire comes first. I never said that books should come second.
Oh, okay.
I never said that you should do this or you should do that. In fact, I went out of my way to say that you should not be compelled to burn your books. If you find value in them, then keep them. It would be silly to get rid of them. So there's nothing. A human being's only language, his only understanding through his conditioning through society is what to do, what activity should I do. And if you tell them that there's nothing to do, then they will say, so I shall do nothing, which is what you just said. And if you tell them there's nothing to do, they will say, so shall I just stand still? I didn't tell you to do nothing. I didn't tell you to stand still. I didn't tell you to do something. I didn't tell you to read. I didn't tell you not to read. That is why it's all about understanding. It is not about prescriptions. And what you have just described is exactly how prescriptions are circular. They can never go anywhere.
For years, I was a reader. I was always reading in order to find something, never knowing exactly what it was. Reading books and items that resonated with me. But I could never get rid of the feeling that
that all the reading was never really getting me where I wanted to. And that all the time that I spent on it wasn't exactly getting me where I wanted to go. That all the information that I was collecting just wasn't getting me anywhere. So then what I would like to ask is then, what was I not understanding about trying to get where I wanted to go? Is it just that?
The same thing that no one understands. Everyone has been brainwashed. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just simply the way it is. Every human being has been brainwashed for their entire life, since childhood, to seek prescriptions, to seek methods, how-tos, techniques. And if there were no methods, how-tos, and techniques, there would not be a single book written anywhere in the world.
I've always been a reader throughout my life. But the fact is that why would you be against prescription, or why would you be against books at all? Because the language that we are...
Stop. This is the wrong room for you. I think that it would serve you best to consider me a fool and that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and for you to go to a room that actually resonates. I have no interest in discussions or to convince you.
So the prescription failed because the truth, or in the domain of truth, you're not actually seeking for results. Therefore, no results means no prescription.
Prescriptions fail because prescriptions lead only to more prescriptions. How-tos lead only to more how-tos. Methods lead only to more methods. They only serve themselves. They never get one anywhere. They're simply circles.
But why is in the mechanical sense?
Yes, mechanically you can. Mechanically, there is a prescription if you wish to turn on a computer. If you wish to turn a doorknob, you can have some prescription for basic mechanical things.
But in truth, it doesn't.
Well, anything beyond mechanical, you don't have to go all the way to truth. Anything beyond something simply basic monkey mechanics, there's no foundation. There's no place for prescriptions. But you don't have to believe that.
So for beginners, books are necessary to get to maybe to a certain stage. But once you are there, you no longer need to depend on a book, but you should be able to find your way. Is that correct?
If that has, well, there's no correct or incorrect. If that has been your experience, then one must walk according to their own experiences. If you have found that books get you somewhere, wherever that may be, then it would be wise for you to continue it. There's no right or wrong. There's no rules here that I'm seeking to get across to you. There's no convincing happening here.
Why are we as humans so desperate to find right or wrong ways to do things?
Well, if you think about it logically, why would you not? It's the only thing that you've ever known. Every single thing. You cannot expect a human being for it to be brainwashed and basically conditioned in every possible way according to certain concepts, and then hope or expect that they not subscribe to that concept. So however you are is because of what society made you. It isn't who you really are.
Thank you so much.
If books are so bad, so why for millennials we are reading books?
Why do you say if books are so bad?
Then why do we need to burn your books? So,
did I say that you need to burn your books?
No, you didn't say.
I never said that you should burn your books. So you should not burn your books. You should not. In fact, you shouldn't listen to anything that I say. You shouldn't even be in this room right now. Okay. There's nothing for you here to learn.
Who should we follow, or what should we follow?
You should not follow anything. You should not do anything. There's no should.
So our own inner experience?
I'm sorry?
So you mean our inner experiences, or what we experience in this journey of life, is what we should rely and count?
Well, a human being's experiences are they have the possibility to provide him some level of knowledge because one has the ability to look at his experiences. If he has the DNA to truly examine things, he does have the ability to look at his experiences in a retrospective fashion and discover what they really did for him and what they did not. And from that, something can arise. But people tend not to be this incisive. They tend to live monotonous, robotic lives. And it is exactly for that reason, coming back to your original question, why they do follow people. There is no reason to follow any doctrine, to follow any guru, to follow any prescription, any method. Because if you follow those things, then you are a blind man who is being led by a dog. Therefore, you will never know anything on your own. You will always be asking for the next step and for the next step. And this is exactly and precisely what has happened to human beings for their whole lives, across all cultures, because they have been taught that methodologies and techniques and prescriptions and good for you and healthy and not healthy and correct and incorrect and bad and good and holy and unholy, as a result, they live their entire life as a slave to these how-tos. And they waste their entire life.
Though I agree that one should be following his or her own
Well,
direction.
you don't need to agree that you've already started off in a vein that is not going to be really in line with what I am talking about. Though I agree, I don't want you to agree. You're coming to a but, and I'm not interested in what your although is. I'm not interested. So if you have a specific question, you can ask it, which you don't.
Forgive me if I'm misinterpreting, but I've followed your writings obsessively, and I've even made a notebook in which I noted down the authors that you mentioned, that you followed. And
I did not follow any authors. I have never followed any author in my life. And though I may have read things in the past, there is nothing that I have read that has taken me from one place to another. I have mentioned in my life people who are truth seekers, people who have found things of truth in their life, people who are genuine, people who are inspirational. I have never in any way, in any fashion, even implied that I have read someone, and from that reading, I went from this place to a higher place.
A lot of the understanding that we and clarity that we gain today on a day-to-day basis is by asking questions. And questioning, the mindset of questioning is inspired by our formal education system, which consists of reading a lot of books and the critical thinking that comes with it. Is there space for reasoning on the path to devotion and seeking the truth?
Yes, perhaps the reasoning, there absolutely is a place for it. And the reasoning is to begin in your own life. So the reasoning in this case, in this particular circumstance, would be to say that if I have read societal doctrines and I have followed prescriptions and I have followed methods, examine for yourself. Have they gotten you to where you wish to go? And don't answer that question. I'm not interested in your answer. But that's an answer for yourself. So that is reasoning. That is the answer to your question.
Is truth a pathless land?
So you've taken words from somebody else, turned it into a question, and brought it over here.
If you want to take it that way, yes.
If I want to take it that way, am I taking it a certain way?
I really thought that statement had some great sense in it.
Is that statement yours?
No, that's not mine.
Okay, so then why did you say that if I wish to take it that way, as if it was subject to interpretation?
All right, I've read it somewhere, and I made it like a question, and I'm asking you.
So that's fine. So I'm asking you, why did you respond with, if you wish to take it that way, as if there was another way to take it?
Okay, I apologize then.
You don't need to apologize. That simply isn't truth.
Can I ask you on what you just said some time back, that human beings are conditioned in a certain way and that's why they are sort of wasting their life I mean, how can they be wasting? I mean, if they're wasting their life, is there something that is to be done? And because they're not doing that, they are wasting it.
I'm not sure if your question is really a question. There is nothing to be done, but I'm not sure that you are really here to ask a question. I think that you have an opinion. I think that you have taken a particular side and a particular angle, which is fine, but that really does not lend itself to a genuine and organic question.
Do you think a person needs a mentor or someone to teach him the ways of life?
I've written extensively about mentors. The answer to your question is no. But the answer to your question won't do anything for you, though, unless you understand the depth behind it. Me saying no to you will do nothing for you. So I might say to you, yes, mentors are wonderful, and that will probably coincide with where your belief is. And then you'll go on and find a mentor. I might say no to you. What does that do for you? Nothing. So it isn't about yeses and nos. It is about looking into the matter. And if one is open to the truth, then he is open to not believing anything, but he is open to seeing the depth behind why I may say one thing or another without any sense that one should in any way adhere to what I am saying.
When somebody discovers the truth in anything, in any field, why is it that when they start to write, that it becomes a prescription?
Because you're never in your life going to meet a human being who is not completely morbidly conditioned by prescriptions. So what else are they going to write? If you squeeze an orange, you're not going to get apple juice.
Is there any utility in books that aren't full of prescriptions that are
Name one.
simply the story?
Name one. Name one.
I guess I'm thinking of like the Gulag Archipelago or that are stories of human experience and belief systems gone awry and causing problems.
And what you're basically saying is that you're looking to say that you find that some books are able to transport you from one level of place to another in terms of transformation. And if you believe that, then perfectly fine. There are no books that don't prescribe. There are no books that don't have a message. There are no books that may not give you a 5-step plan. But there is no author in the world who is writing books that does not wish to have an angle and convince you of something. That animal doesn't exist anywhere.
I see.
Should we burn books, including yours?
I do not recommend that you burn any books. There is no should. And absolutely you can burn my books. There is no should. If you are relying upon me to tell you and then you follow me, then you're not seeing the truth behind it, and therefore you're just turning it into another prescription.
I see you are not wasting a single letter when you speak, and you are going beyond words when you listen to it. Is it, and in world perspective, it is a skill. Is it from no mind or decades of experience? I say no mind because I feel you're not thinking while you speak or listen. You won't come from past, future, pain, or other emotions. It comes right at this moment. What is that which is coming from you? Thank you.
It is not a skill. I have no interest in wasting time. I have no interest in convincing anyone. I have no interest in anyone liking what I say. I have no interest in helping anyone. Everything that I do, I am not the one who does it. It comes through me. And from where it comes, it just comes. And it comes at the moment that it happens. It comes spontaneously. It is very much like speaking in tongues. Where it comes from, I don't know, and I don't seek to question it. But no, I do not rehearse things. And whether it is my writing or whether it is my speaking or whether it is asking as answering questions. It simply arises, and it does not arise from me. It is from somewhere else, somewhere in the beyond.
So it happens when there is no mind.
I do not try to achieve no mind.
I wanted to know whether if I come across something, how can I confirm whether it is the truth or some sort of conspiracy? Thank you.
It is all conspiracy. And everything in your head is a conspiracy.
I recently got your book, Direct Truth, and I was so relieved to see that there was no teaching in it. And I've heard people ask you about your writing, about things you've said in the past, and you often say, I have no idea what I said, I don't remember. If you were to pick up your own book, what lens would you approach your own writing through? Would it feel fresh?
I read it as if I'm reading it for the first time.
It comes fresh to you because it's written from a space of non-effort. It would be able to reflect to you like you're seeing this for the first time. And
yes,
this is the takeaway, or I hate to say the reason for doing it, but the enriching quality of that act, looking back at the reflection of the book itself is its only value. Is that fair?
I don't write a book for the value. I wrote those books because I was compelled to write them, and so it would even be incorrect to say that I wrote them. They were written through me.
Yeah. I hesitated to even ask what could inspire you to pick up the pen. It has to be, the answer has to be the only thing that compelled you is your devotion.
Yes, I write because I have to.
Hi, I joined this conversation late, so you might have already covered this maybe. But when you say burn your books, what is, as per you, the best way of knowledge or information or learning? What do you say about it? Should we?
Devotion to truth.
If everyone has to find his own truth, then how does somebody passes the baton that, yes, I have achieved something and
Okay.
I want to
Listen,
take it forward from there?
I will answer it for you very succinctly. You may understand, you may not. I do not know what your level of
That's fine.
Sincerity is, but I will tell you. Buddha became enlightened. Is that correct?
I don't know actually, but that's what we learned.
That's a fair answer. But let's assume that he did. And then he wrote the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Or at least the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are the messages that were gleaned from him and written down in a book. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those books of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are on every shelf in the world. How many enlightened people have you met in your life? Number 2, the Gita is in every Hindu household and perhaps even millions and millions of non-Indian households. How many gods do you see walking around? What you do see is parrots. Books create parrots. So what you do see is those who take the book of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the Gita and whatever else it may be, and then have lectures about them. And to tell others that you should do this and you should do that, because it is said in the book that this and this and this, and you should adhere to this and you should adhere to that. It's not a crime to do that. But if you look at things from the sky If you look at things from 30,000 feet, if you look at things from a bird's eye view, what you see is that human beings learn nothing from books, because you can learn nothing from prescriptions. And even the texts that profess to have the truth, and they may, there are a lot of truths in the Gita. It is not fluff. But the effect of that is not the creation of gods. The effect of that is the creation of intellectuals and parrots. Parrot.
As a parent, I have all the power to choose for my kids what to read, like, yeah, what they read. Are they victim of me? What is like,
Yes, they are a victim of you.
mhm. And me understanding that, is it a truth about?
Yes, it is the understanding that every parent ruins his or her children. Obviously not by choice. Obviously not by intent.
Mhm.
But it is the examination into what is one's level of realization. And parents do to books what books do to humans. They all prescribe and they all talk nonsense. And in the end, no one really gets anywhere in this world.
Some of your writings, I not just agree to it, I can kind of feel what you're saying, and the rest I cannot understand. So I have a question that in the past I had a teacher, and I think this person would qualify as what you would say a teacher in the purest sense of the word. And unfortunately, she's not in this world anymore, and she helped me reach a peak, a real peak in my life, which I could really feel based on what you describe as a peak performance. And is it wise? Is it effective to look back and emulate what happened there, or is that a wrong way of seeking the truth?
You can, but it will not lead you anywhere. But having said that, you should not use my words as any barrier against doing so.
Hey, Siddha. So, yeah, in my journey of transformation, I also burned all my books because there was no need. However, I want to ask you, if you burn your books, then what do you study? Or do you stop studying?
If you're asking, what do you study? That means that you find value in studying. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you find value in studying, why would you burn your books?
So my question to you was, can truth have any sort of footing in the current education system whatsoever?
No.
My question is, if you have a way to convert a knowledge to wisdom through a book, then why not read a book? Why should we burn the book?
You shouldn't. I agree. Why not? I agree. Read books.
So when it comes to books, we are turning extremely logical, especially considering how many books we have. Where does logic fit in this entire spectrum? Because Bhakti Sutra talks about logic as the lowest form of wisdom. So I would love to know from you.
Logic only goes a certain length. After that, it leaves you high and dry.
My question is, what may be a reason to burn a book?
There's no reason. There's no reason to burn it.
Of the books that I have read, shall I burn them? Sure. What of the books that I've written?
What about them?
Are they of value to keep, or should they be tossed off?
I cannot tell you if they're of any value. I can guarantee you they're not. But what use is that? If I tell you they're of no value, it only matters what your heart says.
So I've read Atmamun and your other two books, and I like to believe it changed me, and it gave me a lot of value. If it was not for these books, let's say we burn these books, what was another way I could get the same thing?
I would say that not that they should have had any kind of profound effect upon you. That wasn't my intent. They were just written. But if they did have any type of significant effect upon you, that was because they are completely free of prescriptions.
The question I have is, why do successful people often feel the need to write books or prescriptions?
Well, every human being is going to do that which they are conditioned to do. So every human being is conditioned by prescriptions. And if you combined, in the sense of the author who writes a prescriptive book, which is basically every author in the world, you combine the ego with the need to garner favor, with the desire to help, with the desire to convince and celebrate their own viewpoint by having it imbibed and recited and agreed upon by others. Those combination of desires leads to the reasoning behind why that happens.
What are the symptoms of a prescription-free life?
Well, one doesn't have to look for symptoms. It is really what you're asking for is lucking into it, and then it would be nice if you did that. And that isn't truth. Truth is not even seeking a prescription-free life. Truth lies in a mature fashion, on one's own, to examine the details and to examine the effect of prescription upon one's own life, and to examine what it has done to him and where it has ever gotten him.
Is our existence nothing but concoction of prescription?
Are you asking, is that what it was meant to be? Or are you asking if that's what it practically is?
If that is what it practically is.
Yes.
I come from teaching profession, and this session has been an excellent demonstration for me. Like for almost ages, we are trying kind of, shift from imparting knowledge to constructing knowledge of domain. And what I have experienced right now is kind of, it's a wonderful experience for me. Coming to my question, like you have used books as kind of a metaphor for any or all kind of prescriptions. And we are so conditioned, kind of, we've engaged with books all our lives. So we kind of, we've conditioned to think that answers are in the books. When you say burn your books, what would you suggest? When do we do it? Before?
I don't suggest that. I don't suggest that you do.
Right. I understand.
If you happen
that.
to,
right.
If it happens to resonate with you that
right.
prescriptions and how-tos and methods and techniques right. have gotten you nowhere, and they are circular, and they
right.
lead one upon chases, then
right.
one will understand.
Mm-hmm.
If one has not understood that, and they just come to the idea of burning the books because the title says burn your books, then there's no reason to do anything, because then they haven't really understood. And that's just an empty action.
Right. Thank you so much.
Well, but your incisiveness of understanding is very keen. And in the profession of teaching, the trouble with school is that they believe that the student is an empty slate upon which they must write something and deposit something. And there is nothing in this society more damaging than school, because school absolutely provides an education. But the education that school provides is the education that one gets from a nightclub. All of the habits that one has in his life, all of the social habits are learned from school. It will perhaps and likely not one day be recognized in the world, perhaps centuries from now, that to put people together of a similar age in childhood does not bring about healthiness. It brings about doom.
Can innovation and happiness go hand in hand? So if we see the countries that tops the innovation charts are not happy themselves, but those who are in happiness charts, happiness index, they don't do well in terms of innovation. So does these things go hand in hand, or is it sort of personal? We don't need to index it. That's my question, sir. Thank you.
You may wish to discover yourself. Discover for yourself what type of individual could possibly create something called a happiness index. If that is not the greatest demonstration of fluff in a society, then what is? And let me tell you the truth about happiness across societies, whether they are developed societies or developing societies. No one is happy, because happiness is a false construct.
I just joined the room when you're speaking about school. My son is now 5 weeks old. And I often thought about, like, before he was born, this idea that I would like to homeschool my kid was always been prevalent. But as I come close to it, like now that it's real, I often wonder, and this is the one feedback that you get from whenever you speak about homeschooling, is that how would you take care of the socializing aspect? Kids need to socialize. Man, after all, is a community sort of a, we live in communities.
You've already, everything that you're talking about has come from books. Man needs to socialize. After all, man is a communal creature. You're conditioned to believe all these things, and I have no interest in arguing with you. But because you believe all these falsehoods, then they're going to color what you do. They're going to influence what you do.
What you are telling us is a huge challenge as a parent, especially
I
in a
think
society where...
I have to stop you for a minute there, because I don't know what you mean by telling. Because by telling, what you are implying is that I'm trying to teach you something, that I'm trying to have you look at things in a certain way, and I am not. Yes.
The other part. Can I? We really, as parents, struggle with children with the kind of structured learning that they get exposed to. How do I introduce innovation in thinking, which is not fixated to books? Because I heard you. I don't want to repeat questions, but a limited point was this: that how do parents inculcate this? Because it takes time for mind, to it's easy to train muscle.
So if you look at things from a from a general level at first, you cannot prescriptionize what I say, because you will completely dilute what is being said, and what is being said is not to make you understand or make you believe anything. The truth is that if you discuss two evils, let's say, and let's say that the books, you have a book which obviously is full of prescriptions, but it's a book. And on the other hand, there are video games. The child is better off reading a book. But there we're talking about a very specific context. So in that sense, a child is far better off in a library than he is in a nightclub, or than he is in front of an iPhone, or than he is in socializing. So in that sense, but that's only in a relative sense. I'm not talking about how to parent children in this particular Clubhouse session. It really is about understanding for a mature adult that prescriptions lead people nowhere, and that's what this means. But as a parent, there should not be any compulsion to take children away from books, because quite frankly, books could actually be a place which keeps them protected from bad habits. The irony is that all of these habits of socialization and social media and bad language and all of the garbage that is composed of today's movies and books and media and whatever it may be, those are all learned in school. So a child does not go to learn to school to learn information. And while he may be going to class, most of his time is learned in the hallways between class. So a child's education at school is a social education, and a very detrimental one.
Is there a book that you resonate the most with?
Did you not understand what this talk is about? What is the title of the room?
Yeah, it says burn your books, but I'm speaking more in the context of as a researcher. I'm sure we all need to read books to just understand context of the past. Just trying to understand if there's any books that has impacted you. If not, great.
No.
From the premise that all conditioning and prescription is futile and undesirable.
But why? But it is not a premise. It is the number one. It is the truth. Number two, you should not in any way imbibe that, because the way that you started the sentence makes it very clear that you are using my words.
Yeah.
And the truth lies in you seeing for yourself if you have found that prescriptions lead nowhere. So you cannot use it as a premise.
Okay. My question was that while reading Bhagavad Gita, you see that Krishna is prescribing something to Arjuna. So why does he do that while being the knower of truth?
That's exactly my point. You will not find a single book that does not prescribe.
My question is, I have heard that someone has told me that when the aspirant improves, he gets many experiences, and we get confused. Is it true experience or just the illusion? And different kind of, and at that point, different kind of our spiritual books we go through on it, and we get there are many experiences that are described, and he told me that those books are not to we read without got experiences. We have to that match that experience. If that
do you have a question? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I get different type of experiences, and I cannot verify experiences, or is it true experience or just my illusion?
Well, I heard you say several times that someone told you.
Yeah.
Someone told you. Okay. Well, I would suggest that you go ask that someone.
So I've been homeschooling my children since they were very little. Not with any particular goal. It just sort of felt natural to do it that way. But as they've gotten older, it's been a struggle to still prize them away from electronic devices and without sort of replacing that with some other kind of I don't know, thing like a book or something that entertains them or engages them in a certain way. So I don't really even know how to frame the question, to be honest. But do you have any thoughts?
Just suggestion as to how to do that.
Even just a way to look at it and think about it. Yeah, it's a real struggle.
Yeah, the struggle is that every human being is destroying their lives, and electronics is absolutely at the center of that. And so whatever comes from that realization, whatever actions come from there, it comes from there. but the depth of the realization will determine the action.
Hi there. What is the most effective way to convey truth?
There is no most effective way. Truth depends upon the readiness of the receiver.
My question is there a way, is there any difference between guidance and prescription?
You will not find anybody to guide you who does not prescribe. You can search every country, every continent, every village, every town. You will not find one person to guide you who will not prescribe to you.
I can burn the books physically, but what about all the so-called learnings and teachings that have been imparted in my mind? How do I burn them?
You don't need to burn them. You don't need to burn anything. There's only truth.
I feel most of us, we read books to escape our present or our reality. So I would like to know, I feel we constantly want to change our present. And this is our desperate attempt. So don't you think that that's the real issue and that is something what needs to be addressed?
So when you ask a question which says, don't you think, that means you already think and you're looking for me to come on your side. That is not a true question. It's not maybe.
When and how will I be ready to receive the truth?
I cannot answer that question for you. If is also a part of that.
Is logic in any way filtering out the way we look at life or the way we perceive it?
Yeah, logic is very limited. It plays some role, but it's very limited.
In the past, many times when I've dropped all the knowledge acquired and all that from that space, and like when I was in mindless space, I've got a lot of this from somewhere that I got this knowledge and that knowledge kind of helped me to find the peace, and not only find the peace but also to find the material gain and all that. And then at some point I was really confirmed that there is such space.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. And then now whenever I try to go into that space, I cannot access it. Why is that?
Because you're chasing it.
The words that come from other people, whether they speak it or they write it, is it possible to observe it objectively, not assimilate it as your own?
Yes, you absolutely can observe it objectively, and in fact, but observing it objectively won't do anything for you, and assimilating it will do nothing for you, because other people are conditioned. The so-called other people that you speak of. Every human being is conditioned. And to listen to a conditioned human being speak, all you can hear are lies.
And so if I objectively look at my thoughts, only then I would know my truth.
No, you will not. You will just be like a mule looking at your thoughts. Who cares? All of these things have been put into you by the world, by society, by spirituality.
Right.
They have no meaning. They don't go anywhere. But you're welcome to do them. Good night.